My name is Andrew Silverman. I am 31 years old and I have been in Whatcom County for a little over 3 years. I moved from Philadelphia, PA, so all the way across the country. Me and my now wife were looking for like a small to mid-sized city to live in that was similar in grittiness and vibe and culture to Philadelphia, but was on the Pacific Northwest side of the country. We had previously looked at Eugene, Oregon, and some other kind of college towns that had the PNW vibe that we were looking for, but nothing really fit the bill until we found Bellingham. Its proximity to Vancouver, BC, its proximity to Seattle and Everett was super appealing, and not to mention its proximity to the great outdoors and the public space was a huge selling factor. But coming to Bellingham, very, very different from what we expected, but in really good ways. Professionally, I work as a community outreach specialist for the Port of Bellingham. More or less, I am their videographer, drone pilot, and I run their social media and marketing accounts for both the Port of Bellingham and the airport. We rent for just under $2,000 a month, which in my mind is outrageous to be renting for that much in a city with a fairly dismal outlook on job prospects, especially for younger folks. When we were living in Philadelphia, I don't think I ever paid more than $1,300 for a pretty sizable apartment. We are attempting to move maybe to a rentable house, some sort of apartment with a garage or storage situation, and it's been very, very difficult to find anything that is accessible in terms of upfront costs. So what I'm saying is like the security deposit, first and last month's rent, application fee, dog rent, pet fees, insurance, whatever, you name it. I mean, it's just, you need a 2012's down payment on a house to move into an unfortunate apartment in Bellingham. A lot of our friends have that built-in network. So, for example, we have friends that live at one of their dad's houses that they, bought years and years and years ago. And that is a similar case that I find with a lot of folks that I see like sort of able to live here fairly comfortably. There is some sort of, I don't want to call it nepotism, but it is kind of a nepotism of kind of, we've been here for a while, we know this situation and we're not leaving this great situation that we have. It's almost like living in New York, you get that rent stabilized apartment and you don't move for years. You're there for 50 years and you can't pass it down. So we're sort of in that struggle of how do we know somebody to get an apartment or a house to rent that fits our needs, because it seems like maybe that's the only way to achieve that. So for us, we're looking for something that fits that model of 2-bedroom, able to grow and expand, potentially have a family. We have a dog, we have a cat, we have bikes, we have all the outdoor stuff that people in Bellingham have, that every young person and old person in Bellingham has that they need space for. It's not even in our bandwidth. We're not even, it's not even on our Etsy goal, our Etsy list, it's nowhere. We're not thinking about it because it's grossly expensive. There's a systemic issue here in Bellingham and it's very dated, super old school. Philadelphia, people really understand that like when you live there, you're mixed into an environment of rich and poor. On one block, you can have completely different class of human on that same block. In Bellingham, people really want their neighborhoods segregated into classes. And I think, as far as I am concerned right now, Bellingham enjoys knowing which places are paying the highest taxes based off of, that segregation. So to answer your question, we're not really thinking about buying a house anytime soon. There's a lot of job potential in Philadelphia. There's a lot of network potential in Philadelphia. It's a big city. So we moved from like potentially a hub to what we did not expect to be such a graveyard. Not only are there not jobs, there's not even industry where jobs are to be had. There's not even waiting for somebody to leave their job to swoop in and apply. There's nothing. There's no money for entrepreneurs. There's no infrastructure for large industry. So when we moved here, it was very, very difficult to find something that would sustain us to live here. And we were very seriously toying with the idea of moving to Seattle or Portland, where we would have maybe more of a chance to find something that was a little higher paying. And I was freelancing for a while before locking down an actual career. I don't think Bellingham really feels that shift when folks are leaving. I know that there have been, headlines of the amount of Western students that don't get jobs in Whatcom County post-graduation. It's definitely buzzy, and it's a headline. but I think it needs to be looked upon more seriously. How really can we affect that? And I think absolutely it's housing. I have friends that would love to move to Bellingham or are very interested in moving to the Pacific Northwest, and they're looking at Bellingham as a potential place to settle down. And I have to unfortunately tell them, if you're not working at the city or if you're not working for any, I guess, government agency, you have to either freelance or start a business and hope that it takes off. So I've been turning people away. Like, I don't think this is right. The country is being run by older folks that have been able to afford the luxuries of the American dream, and they think that it's that easy. You just have to work really hard. And they look at our generation and assume that we're just not working hard enough, which is super unfortunate. Yeah, ideally 10 years from now, we do own a home. You know, it is in the dream. We do own something. Maybe we can build on or whatever within a walkable or bikeable distance from Bellingham or some sort of civilized area of the Pacific Northwest. And I hope, I'm still having a great job, and I hope we have some kids running around, and we have, I hope our dog is still alive, and, maybe not. But yeah, no, I just hope we're not in the same rut, and I hope it doesn't just get worse and worse and worse. I hope we're able to save money. In 10 years, I hope we have some cushion. Yeah, I just hope we can afford something. Hope we can afford to continue to live here forever, and actually have pride of ownership in Bellingham, which I think is extremely important. I think Bellingham overlooks the idea of pride of ownership. For example, my neighborhood, quote unquote, the worst neighborhood in Bellingham, I think that has a lot to do with the pride of ownership in that neighborhood. It's a very renting heavy neighborhood where folks lack infrastructure. There's like no sidewalks. It floods. It's kind of nasty. And there is crime. But I also think a lot of that has to do with the fact that everybody rents there and nobody really gives a shit to keep it up as a neighborhood. It lacks the same flavor as some of the other neighborhoods like York, for example, or like Fairhaven, areas in Fairhaven, where folks have that ownership and they really want to build up the community. Bellingham is such a prideful hippie town. It's very branded as being a hippie town. And a lot of those hippies moved here from wherever and bought multiple properties and thought that they were going to be good stewards of the land. After the hippie movement, they were like, let's settle down in Bellingham, continue on our hippiedom, have our backyard farms. But as time went on, they cut their hair, they got straight-laced, and they started caring more about their view. Cut down that tree, I want to see the water, or I don't want this kind of housing development in my area, and that's so not hippie. I want these people to look inward. Maybe get a picture of themselves at Woodstock and look back and say, would this person appreciate what I'm doing right now? Maybe I should pay a little bit more. Maybe I can afford to build that storage unit at my apartment building that I've owned since 1987 to help out my tenants because they have to live here. Some of these people need to give up a little bit to help the greater good of the entire area.